Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Black Business Roundtable. I am your host, Doug Blackshear, broadcasting to you live from the City of Diversity, Oakland, California. There will be a special announcement towards the end of the first hour. I want to remind our national audience to share this new organization, Schools and Labor Against Privatization, known as SLAP. Hashtag SLAP.BayArea, and the website is www.slapbayarea.org, SLAP Bay Area. On their Instagram social media yesterday, May 18, they issued an action alert: reclaim Parker Elementary by and for the people. Date: Saturday, May 28, 2022 at 12 p.m. Address: 7929 Nay Avenue, Oakland, California. The post states, "We will not stand for Oakland Unified School District's attack on Parker Elementary." That's why the day the city closes Parker, the community plans to take over and reclaim Parker by and for the people. The school board will call this an illegal occupation, but we know this is a liberation, an effort to decolonize our schools for Black and brown communities. We will need all the support we can get. We are calling on you to come and stand with us against racist school closures by taking back Parker School. Hashtag, once again, is SLAP Bay Area. That's SLAP.BAYAREA. Or their website is slapbayarea.org for more information. Now, for today's political corner, which reflect who is and is not locally and nationally honoring their commitment to work for their constituents. Today we're going to be having a quick overview of Project Labor Agreement and more to follow by Allyssa. Audience, Project Labor Agreement have made it challenging for Black businesses to get on these big government contracts, and the unions have a diminishing African American Black membership. We're hoping that Allyssa, when she comes on today, Allyssa Victory, she will explain to you why, what, and who, and how the PLA is affecting the economics and Black contracting in not only Oakland, Alameda County, and California, but in America, folks, in America. A special thanks to our sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of BlackUSA.News, and be sure to tune in to Chap and Friends on Monday, Party Marty, Let's Talk on Tuesday, and on Saturday, my sister, Blackout, live from New York, Kashmir, and Sundays, 60 Minutes and Black USA with my friend and colleague, Michael Haney. Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Tammy Willis is President, Chief Executive Officer of Magnolia Engineering and Construction, one of the few African American, female-owned and operated engineering and construction firms in the country and located here in Oakland, California. Visit their website at learnmoremagnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com, because if our daughters can see her, they can be her. Once again, if our daughters can see her, they can be her. Their website is magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com. To be considered as a guest or to join our advertising family, send your company name and or your name, address, website, company phone number, and social media page info to our email, and that's BBRT2021 at hotmail.com for vetting consideration. Today's show highlight. Tonight we will continue with our segment from last week on incarceration to freedom. And I want to say that once again to our audience locally, in the state, and nationally. Incarceration to freedom. And as my brother Sabir said recently, returning residents. We have another friend of the show and returning guest that originally shared his story last year and a follow-up earlier this year. We will learn how he and his mother came through this period of hardship and made it through as a family. The new hashtag for Carlton is hashtag Stand with Carlton of Raleigh, NC 2022. And the NC stands for North Carolina. We will keep you updated on this case, and it's critical that we help this young man get his freedom from the correctional institutions of North Carolina. We will keep you posted on the fundraising efforts to hire a legal defense firm needed to get Carlton justice in 2022. If you have any messages to share with Carlton, please forward to BBRT2021 at hotmail.com and put in the subject line hashtag Stand with Carlton of Raleigh, NC 2021, and that's North Carolina. Our guests today include our weekly check-in with our very own Dr. Ashley Coleman, newly tenured, and immediate past department chair, assistant professor of psychology at University of the West. Dr. Ashley's running a little late today. I'm sure she's out there giving some of that psychological healing that she is so well trained to do. Our next guest, returning to the show, Allyssa Victory, Esquire, currently running for mayor of Oakland, community organizer, civil rights and labor attorney. Instagram at Victory4, and that's FOR, Oakland, or visit her website at victory4oakland.com. Our next guest today, and I can't wait until he gets here with his mom, John Jones III, formerly incarcerated, now an advocate, transforming his community by channeling his experiences and expertise on issues related to criminal justice reform. Google Doug Blackshear and John Jones III on our February 3rd, 2022 show, or click show description link as seen. Oh, it's not on the screen. It's going to be on YouTube, and if you Google Doug Blackshear and John Jones III, you will see that episode, which was magnificent. His mother, Ann Benjamin, is the mother of our friend of the show and guest tonight, John Jones III. Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, will return in June, friend of the show, and running for District 4 in Oakland, California. She's running for city council to make this city better. We support you, Janani Ramachandran. You can visit her website at Janani4, and that's FOR, Oakland.com, and her new Instagram at Janani 4 Oakland. And Oakland and 4 is the numeral 4. Now, for the national political highlights and several elections. Georgia voters, just 6 days away is your primary Tuesday, May 24th. Marcus Flowers, guest of the show and friend of the show. Our guest, February 24th, he's a Democrat running to defeat Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, aka Perjury Taylor Greene at Georgia's 14th district. He believes in bipartisanship and bridge building and does not believe in vilifying political opponents. Learn more on Instagram at Marcus4, and that's the number 4, Georgia, or you can visit his website at georgia.com. Still time to get a yard sign, help knock on doors, and phone banking. Visit his website for detail, and his hashtag is OneGeorgia, and that one is ONE Georgia. And the conspiracy theorist, hashtag Perjury Taylor Greene. She needs to come clean. I love that one. I'm going to say it again on it. And the conspiracy theorist, hashtag Perjury Taylor Greene. She needs to come clean. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, a Democrat, helped flip Georgia blue along with Senator John Ossoff, running for Senate against Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker go from football to the okay, all right, Herschel. I'm gonna hold my comments on that. Hey, Dr. Ashley.
Hey,
to fight
Doug.
to fight for affordable health care, protect voting rights, and ensure the dignity of working people and a Morehouse College alumni. Learn more on Instagram at Raphael Warnock or visit his website at Warnock4, and that's FOR, Georgia.com. Hashtag OneGeorgia, and that's ONE Georgia. Stacey Abrams, a Democrat, economic, educational, and social mobility, healthcare, military families, and veterans support are all a part of her policy platform. To quote Stacey Abrams, opportunity in our state shouldn't be determined by zip code, background, or access to power. Learn more on Instagram at Stacey Abrams or her website, stacyabrams.com. Her hashtag is, once again, OneGeorgia, and that is the one spelled out, ONE, Georgia. And Val Demings, a Democrat, is running for the 2022 Florida Senate. Text the word JOIN to 77076. Her policy platform includes national security, jobs, and economy, healthcare, housing, and environment. Vote to unseat Republican Little Marco Rubio in Florida. Girl, you know I can't wait when I say his name. Little Marco Rubio, pack your little bags, put your little kid martini shoes on, and as Trump told you, scurry on up out of there. I love that. That's more therapeutic than squeezing the ball, Dr. Ashley. Val's tagline. Oh, Dr. Ashley, that is so funny. I had to stop for a minute and catch my breath. Val's tagline. Oh my goodness. I have to catch my breath, Dr. Ashley. I have to catch my breath. Val's tagline is never tire. Never tire. Hang in there, Val Deming. We have got you back here on the Black Business Roundtable. Learn more on Instagram at Val Demings, or her website is valdemings.com. Dr. Ashley, I am so glad to see you. We've had a challenging week. Audience, I have some great news, and we're going to share that with you on the show, because it's you that has kept the Black Business Roundtable, Dr. Ashley and me, and our backstage on top of the game. You asked for it, and we give it to you. So, audience, thank you very much. Dr. Ashley, it is so good to see you. And I want to tell you that at the end of the day, you have made this show and me, and I need all the help I can get to look good. Dr. Ashley, we really appreciate what you've done, what you continue to do. Thank you for coming on. And from almost day one, what you bring to this show and mental therapy, I can go on and on and on. Dr. Ashley, please take it away.
Thank you, Doug. It's great to see you, and greetings to our listeners. It has been a week, but we are still here. And again, as we start the segment and acknowledging how far we've come and the challenges that we still have to overcome, our uh, news of the day, courtesy of the Equal Justice Initiative. Again, their calendar is available for download by visiting the website calendar.eji.org. This is not an easy article to read, so I'm going to, in light of the racial trauma that we've sustained collectively, I'm going to skim through it, acknowledge it, and then I'm going to talk about racial trauma in my Therapeutic Thursday segment. So on this day, May 19th, which I like to remember as Malcolm X's birthday, but we also have to acknowledge May 19th, 1918, that Miss Mary Turner, who was pregnant at the time, was lynched in Georgia for publicly criticizing her husband's lynching. And so, again, unfortunately, an atrocity occurred on May 19th, 1918, when a white mob from Brooks County, Georgia, lynched Mrs. Mary Turner, a Black woman who was 8 months pregnant at the time, and they lynched her from the Folsom Bridge, which is 16 miles north of Valdosta, for speaking publicly against the lynching of her husband the day before. And the details of her lynching are there. They are gruesome. And in light, again, of the unjust slaying of 10 African Americans in Buffalo, which again I'll speak about shortly. I'm going to bypass the details of her killing, but for those who go to visit the calendar, just want you to know it was very horrific. And again, her husband, Mr. Hayes Turner, had been lynched the day before. He was accused of being an accomplice in the killing of a notorious white farmer, Hampton Smith, who was well known for his abuse of Black farm workers. And Mr. Smith would bail Black people accused of petty crimes out of jail, and then require them to work on his farm to work off their debt. And Sidney Johnson, a Black man working to pay a legal fee for rolling dice, confessed to killing Mr. Smith during a quarrel about after being overworked. And Mr. Johnson was killed in a shootout. But then again, the community turned on Mr. Turner and other Black farm workers in retaliation. And this is a time in our history when Black people, again, were being lynched based on accusations, no due process. And Mrs. Turner, in her grief, but courageously spoke out about her husband's death, promising to take legal action, and was unable to do so. And so it was a double killing of her and her unborn child. And this is one of the Equal Justice Initiative has documented approximately 600 racial terror lynchings that occurred between 1877 and 1950 in the state of Georgia. And Brooks County specifically had the third highest number of documented racial terror lynchings. And just More stories about Black people being killed for just being.
Dr. Ashley, and I'm going to be brief because we want to stay on time. I've been getting texts from the backstage saying,
Mm-hmm.
Doug, Curtel, we are still in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It's just called economic slavery. Economic slavery. Once again, Dr. Ashley, as I need it most today, as I need it every day, but your dose of therapy is so powerful. Once a week keeps me going for the next week. Dr. Ashley, Therapeutic Thursday, please take it away. Thank you, Dr. Ashley.
Thank you, Doug. And again, greetings again to our listeners. We're still in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. Um, wow, what a week it's been. And I'll start, as I always do, in full transparency and just honoring that I needed to take a breath in transitioning between the workday and getting to spend time with my family here, the BBRT family, and the podcast. And I'm grateful to do that. But why did I need that breath just for being? But what a weekend! We have to acknowledge the 13 victims of the shooting in Buffalo, New York at Top Supermarket. 13 who were shot, 10 who were killed. And I want to honor the victims and the survivors by just saying their names and again, reminding us that we are human and what we can do when we have what we call vicarious trauma, when we're impacted by stories of other people being killed. But I want to acknowledge Miss Roberta A. Drury, Marcus D. Morrison, Andre McNeil, Aaron Salter, Geraldine Talley, Celestine Cheney, Hayward Patterson, Catherine Massey, Pearl Young, Ruth Whitfield, and then for the survivors, Zaire Goodman, Jennifer Warrington, Christopher Braden. And so, as horrified as I'm sure we all were, I was too. And then I caught a segment on one of the networks that actually was interviewing Miss Celestine Cheney's family, her son. She was a grandmother of 6, and she also had great grandchildren. And what actually impacted me, and I had to turn off the segment after this, surrounded by a beautiful family. They spoke glowingly about Miss Cheney, the light that she brought not only to her immediate family, but to the world. But Miss Cheney had survived 3 brain aneurysms. Survived 3 brain aneurysms, raised her child, helped raise her grandchildren. She was 65 years old, only to have the fire put out of her life. So you don't go through life in the 60s and integration and all of this just to make it to that your twilight years where it's still going, still a lot to live for, still people loving you, but surviving 3 brain aneurysms. And I was overcome with grief. I was overcome with anger. I turned the segment off. And so again, want to just remind us about symptoms of trauma, which can also include anger. So again, racial trauma, trauma coming from just any contact with racial discrimination of sorts that can present with feelings of anger, with dread, with hopelessness, with worry. And those feelings can be immediately onset or they can be delayed. Again, I felt reminded, feeling triggered, thinking about the age of my parents and other loved ones and the freedom that we should just be able to go to the store. I noticed as I went to the store since Saturday, I'm always was taught to be around my surroundings. And while I like to listen to my headphones, I don't do it in the grocery store. I heard you, Dad. And I'm always, aware of my surroundings. But I found my heart racing a little bit more than usual. Didn't understand why. I found myself teary-eyed, and then I realized, oh, I'm remembering that even something as simple as going to the store, where usually my mind is on which vegetable and the increasing costs, the first world problems of inflation, It was also on the exits. I also looked in the eye of different people and wanted to just make sure. And so again, there I want to remind all of us that we just hit the 2-year mark of the pandemic. So I call this season 3. We're going into year 3 of this, season 3 of the pandemic. We have inflation. The news is all the way around. There's so much coming at us, and we have all these things happening in our personal lives. And I want to I want to acknowledge what the guidelines are for therapy for Black girls. They wrote a really nice just summary on some things we can do to take care of ourselves emotionally. So we talk about checking in with ourselves. In addition to that, they talked about screening the news. Screening the news. This may be a time to check out. Maybe you've watched the segment, you're aware, but maybe taking a step back from the news in order to recenter yourself. Get outside, take care of your immediate well being, your sleep, take care of your biological needs, eating, moving, stretching in order to do that. Yes, stretching, get in contact with people that you love, people that get it. Pour into yourself with hobbies. For me, I've been checking out and enjoying the playoffs because that's something that gives back to me. Also, listening to music that I find empowering, and reconnecting myself with purpose. Um, and then in that, it's just also being gentle with yourself. Other people may not understand. I had to bring up the killing of in Buffalo at work to also allow myself to understand that there are things on my mind, and to give myself grace and space to be, because while other people may not recognize that I'm having an emotional reaction to what happened to other Black people over 3,000 miles away, we are connected. And so I allowed myself some extra space and room to be.
Audience, let me be clear here. This doctor, this Black woman, my sister, my colleague, we appreciate when you come onto the show. It's almost like my blood pressure just drops. Shoo! Thank you, Dr. Ashley, for our therapeutic Thursday.
Thank you, Doug.
Audience, welcome Allyssa Victory, Esquire, one of our favorite social justice attorneys. And I know quite a few attorneys who are social justice and civil rights attorneys. And she is running for mayor of Oakland and was part of the hashtag Slap Bay Area Weekend of Action, April 29th and April 30th, a couple of weeks ago. She is a friend of the show and here today to inform our audience what a project labor agreement is and the pros and cons of a project labor agreement and what it means for Black businesses and what it doesn't mean for Black businesses. Dr. Ashley, please, can you introduce our civil rights labor attorney? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so looking forward to hearing. I want to know what a project labor agreement is. So let's see, as she is entering in, I have my notebook ready. How about you, Doug?
I have my notebook, and she is running a little bit late, but let me inform our audience from my experience
Mhm.
as a contractor working on PLAs. Project labor agreements typically are designed to allow smaller companies to have opportunities to work on large government contracts, which are prevailing wage, union project, or Davis-Bacon Act.
Mhm.
Davis-Bacon Act is to determines in whatever area you live in a wage that will and is sustainable for where the job is located.
Mhm.
Second, a project labor agreement allows a small company to work on one specific project based on the agreement that a union, whether it be laborers, carpenters, operating engineers, sheetrock drywallers, painters, etc., that they pay the same wage that they would pay that union person, the
Mm,
benefits package, which include medical,
mm,
sick leave,
mhm,
retirement,
mhm,
etc. So the way the wages have been moving forward, oh, there she is. Well, let me tell you something, Allyssa. I am positive that your explanation is going to make mine seem like a joke. So, well, I got as close as possible, but audience, I'd like to welcome back our sister, our friend of the show, our civil rights attorney and social justice and labor attorney, running for mayor of Oakland, and a huge part of schools and labor against privatization. Audience, she's going to tell us what a project labor agreement is and the pros and cons of a project labor agreement and what it means specifically for Black businesses. Because I'm not going to say anything bad, but my experience with a PLA, it does not help Black businesses
mm.
unless we are in the room writing the agreement before it is agreed upon. So without any more delay, Dr. Ashley, please introduce, I can't say introduce, fire off the first question because I'm dying to hear from a person who's trained in labor, legal laws. What's going on here? Thank you. I'm putting myself on mute.
Absolutely, Miss Victory. We're so happy to have you back. Thank you for being a friend of our show. And so we have two questions. We have our notebooks ready, pens, because this is in a different arena for me. So can you first, it's a two-parter. Can you educate us on what a project labor agreement is and what are the pros and cons of such agreement?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you again to this amazing roundtable for all of the content you put out, all the guests that are on the show today and that you've been
Thank
bringing,
you.
and for having me to share a little bit about this really important labor question and labor issue and this type of agreement that not a lot of people really know in detail about. PLA is a project labor agreement. Sometimes it's also referred to as a community workforce agreement.
Mhm.
They can look very different depending on who the parties are. This is a contract, right? So there's usually two entities that are involved. But generally, this is a pre hire contract that would govern a specific construction project. And so if we know there's going to be a project, they'll have these pre hire agreements that do talk about wages, benefits, and the types of terms and conditions of anyone who's going to be working. They're most traditionally entered into between the contractor on the project and the construction trades unions. And again, the unions can represent different folks, people who lay the carpets, people who do the
Mhm.
plumbing, people who are painters. And they also have a structure that's more a coalition of all of their unions that are in the construction industry. So again, these are pre-hire agreements when we know there's a specific project. It's
Mhm.
about the terms of the benefits and working conditions, even the project schedule that workers or the contractor would agree to before anyone is hired to actually work on. And if since it's put in place before that happens, it usually applies to both union workers but also any non-union workers that get hired on the project. And so contractors do end up paying union wages, union benefits to those non-union workers for the period of that special construction project. These are
Mhm.
not new things. They've been around, I would say, at least 100 years, maybe the 1930s. But we started seeing them used more in publicly funded projects around the 80s. Our federal government had started to really push it at that point and to encourage federal governments, federal contractors to have to enter into PLAs, almost having a mandatory program. And so it started to become more and more in discussion. We started to see even more kind of data. And again, it depends on kind of whether it's a federal level project, a state level, but I'm really here to talk about what that can look like at the city level. Just to the second part about what are some of the pros and the cons. Some of the pros are that it is very worker protective. It is union protective. Again, it's about ensuring that there are a certain level and usually a high standard of wages, benefits, and working conditions that align with the unions organizing and similar to their collective bargaining agreements. But again, this would apply to even non-union employees for the duration of this project. So it can be beneficial to the individual workers who are, putting in their time, their physical labor to construct, apartments or a new entertainment space. And so it is supportive in that sense. It also helps it helps ensure that those things will already be set so that there aren't delays, work stoppages, or strikes because all those terms have already been laid out. They've already been contracted to, which means it's agreement. And it can help kind of set clear expectations to make sure the project gets done according to the desired timeline. And the third benefit is that whatever contract or PLA you enter into, it also would apply to any subcontractors, any piece of it that might be contracted out to others in the process. So again, it like uniformly would apply to any contractors on the project, but also to any workers, whether union or not. However, there are downsides. The downsides really are about equity and are about equal representation, are about diversity and equal opportunity of this economic benefits, really. Again, these are high wages, these are high earners. This is guaranteeing, certain types of folks will get hired and employed on a project for a certain number of months or even years that they agree to schedule the building. So again, it can benefit a lot of workers, but the issue is who are the workers that are in the construction unions? Who are the workers that are getting the first bite at this through these contracts being put in place before anyone is hired? And I can tell you very clearly, it's not people that look like me. It's not our Black workers. It's not women workers. And this has been addressed head on in the city of Oakland that started in 2018 with a resolution passed by our council to study the equity issues within our building and construction trades and to come up with a public process to move us towards a potential citywide project labor agreement that addresses that. So our city's actually been looking at how can we mandate equity, mandate local hiring, mandate hiring of formerly incarcerated peoples, mandate equity of opportunity in these contracts themselves instead of the contracts being the tool that excludes those workers. So our city is grappling with that very question around the cons and the negatives, because statistically, based on the data that our city has reported in their 2021 report, that prompted us to create a task force on equity in our CWA agreements, it showed that only 2% of the building construction trades workforce that's unionized is women, identify as female or as women, and only 5% identify as Black. So again, out of all of these large projects, large high wages, guaranteed hires, local hires, 2% are women, 5% are Black workers. And that is definitely not reflective of our city's population, nor of the city's need in our actual employment and unemployment statistics. So that's some of the pros, but also some of the cons are really around the racial justice and equity piece, which is part of why I'm running for this seat.
You know what, Allyssa Victory, I've had an opportunity to work on a lot of government contracts. Highland Hospital, when they tore it down and built it back up, some BART projects and others. BART seems to be a little more inclusive. But let me be clear here, audience. And I got to take my glasses off. I have to be clear. When I was going through my legal situation, which included fighting a multi-billion-dollar construction company who purposely did everything they could to put me out of business. When we had the what do you call that when you ask for documents? Counselor, you call that when you ask for
Information request. Not
uh,
sure.
just
Not
when
sure what specific thing you're thinking of. Sometimes when unions do it, it's just an information request.
yes, when disclosure, you have to one side has to disclose all the documents, etc. I seen documents, and I won't name the union or the company, but if you Google Doug Blackshear, the warrior, you can see for yourself who I went against. I saw for myself where a union conspired with a multi-billion-dollar construction company to put me out of business. For the hearing impaired, I'm going to slow it down. I saw documentation, correspondence between a multi-billion-dollar corporation and a national union conspiring to put me out of business. Shameful. That is what led me here today, my advocacy, my political plight, because it's shameful. Shameful.
I'm sorry to hear that. And I do hate that sometimes labor groups, labor organizations become politicized in ways that they are more self-interested in just getting things for their members, and maybe even to the detriment of other unions and their members, even to the detriment of equity and racial justice, and certainly to the detriment of small and local business owners. There has to be a way for everyone to be able to thrive, especially in my city. Again, one of the negatives is that if these agreements are already put in place, sometimes it can lock out small local businesses from then getting awarded those contracts, since they're already being held to a certain salary range or wages, benefits, and if they can't afford those things, then they're not able to then even bid on some of these contracts if those terms are already going to be included if they become the contractor on a project. And again, our city right now has a task force on CWA agreements trying to put forth recommendations on how to address the equity piece. Some of them include providing city assistance and financial assistance for those high costs that can come with PLAs.
Counselor, can you let our audience know again a PLA, and what did you say the city of Oakland is working on?
A PLA is a project labor agreement, but another name for it is a community workforce agreement.
Okay,
And
audience.
so the city's task force is called the CWA process, but it's the same thing as PLA.
Okay, audience. A CWA, Community Workforce Agreement. Now, I want it to be clear, Counselor, and tell me if I'm wrong. Neither one of these are binding contracts. They are agreements. And can you tell our audience what the difference is between a binding contract and an agreement? Thank you.
They are contracts. They are. It's hard, like the wording. Like agreements are technically contracts. This is a contract where people are negotiating it. May spend months, even years, negotiating some of these terms and then agree to them. But again, they wouldn't bind any specific contractor until or unless that contractor is, approved or assigned to the project. So again, these are pre-hire, even sometimes before the contractors and all subcontractors have been decided. So it is usually very early in the stages before we see the full development of, again, who is going to be at the table and bound by the terms. So the people who are bound come in later, but the terms are kind of negotiated and set out. So again, it's a very unique process, different from traditional labor agreements where, you already have employees and then people unionize and try to make contracts there. But again, any type of contract, any agreement, PLA, CWAs, these are all voluntary agreements that people enter into. At this moment, there is no mandatory policy. There is no public lands policy, even for our city funded developments, to require people enter into these. At the moment, they are voluntary from any contractors and owners, and often being pushed by the building and construction trades unions through different campaigns and different kind of political pressures. So again, contracting is never forced, and we don't have any rules right now. But again, the CWA task force in our city is coming up with recommendations around how we can have a citywide agreements or requirements, and some of those may build in requirements to get those numbers up from 2% women, from 5% Black folks.
Dr. Ashley, do you mind if I? Because
I'm learning a lot from both of you, and I'm still, though. Let me just quickly say the statistics of 5% African American and then 2% women. I think I'm my mind is still just kind of stuck there at the low representation, and I appreciate the efforts to diversify.
Let me just tell you something, audience. Oakland, California, homeless rate amongst Black people. 70% of homeless people in Oakland are Black. And over half of those, that number, are elderly people. I'm 59 years old. So the people who I grew up with, mothers and fathers of people who I grew up with, it's shameful that the city of Oakland does not track and monitor and do a better job. And let me be clear, because we got an extra 10 minutes. John Jones is running late. Can you stay a few minutes extra?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. Can you stay a few minutes extra, counselor?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Audience, let me be clear here. Back in the 70s and the 80s and the early end of the 60s, Black businesses were thriving here in Oakland, California. You can drive up and down the street, and I've mentioned this when we first started the show, and I'd also like to say, Allyssa Victory, we're at our 1-year anniversary, so thank you for being on this month and sharing that with our audience. You are one of the reasons why we have been here going over a year, and I'll be sharing some great news. So if you get off, I'd like to share that with you. I've been biting my tongue, Dr. Ashley. I've been biting, so I'm gonna hold off a little bit longer. But before she goes, I'm gonna let her know. Businesses were thriving here in Oakland. Construction businesses, retail businesses, service industry, and I can't believe what has happened. Ever since Jerry Brown, the ex-mayor of and I'm putting it out there, he got those hundreds of millions of dollars in redevelopment money, and he used to be the governor. Came back to be the mayor, destroyed black economic in the city, and then got elected to be governor again. But briefly, in 30 seconds, he found out where that redevelopment money was coming from out of the state. He burned all that money up with his crony friends with these big contracts in the city of Oakland. And audience, this is coming from Doug Blackshear, not anyone else on this stage, and you can fact check me. Once he got these hundreds of millions of dollars in redevelopment money, when he became governor again, he cut the program out. So that the people who needed that redevelopment dollars, they couldn't get it. That is why it's so critical to vote, to know who you're voting for and what you're voting for. Dr. Ashley, would you like to ask another question? If not, I can stay in the zone with her.
I'm gonna defer to you. Hand off, like a good point guard. I'll hand off to you. Keep shooting.
Got it. In your opinion, counselor, and I say counselor because you are the one to ask. You are a labor lawyer. What the heck? I almost said heck. What the hell is going on here in Oakland in regards to this low number of women? Are you listening? The city of Oakland said, we're not hiring you if you're a woman, and only if you do come, we're out of 100, we're only taking 2. Black people, if you live in Oakland and want to work in Oakland, we're only going to take 5 out of 100, and the rest is others. Counselor, can you tell us, and last but not least, audience, I have asked each and every person running for mayor to come on this show, and Allyssa was the only one who was not afraid to come answer those tough questions. Not when you get hired, but what are you going to do if you get hired? And that is if we vote you in. Go ahead, counselor.
Oh, that was a lot. Well, again, we're in the process right now of this task force that, is also being advised with our Department of Race and Equity around how to address the equity issues identified in our 2018 study. That same year in 2018, we had our equity indicators report measuring life indicators of a healthy community around our entire city that confirmed we have high racial disparities in general unemployment, economic opportunities, even training to get into something like the skilled building trades unions. And so there's an operation and design of inequity and justice that has been in our city for decades, for generations, that's started within City Hall itself. Our 2017 equity indicators, contractor disparity study confirmed that our city, who is able to give out contracts, who sets out its own process for contracts and requirements, is engaging in this disparate practice also, shutting out millions of dollars from small local owned Black business owners who qualified actually, but because we do not lead with equity, we do not lead with real inclusion, we talk about it as a value statement, but we have to act on it and we have to legislate it. So I'm hoping that council will then come back with a strong legislative package based on the task force's recommendations. If not, the strong mayor in Oakland actually has the power to introduce legislation myself, which I will commit to do if council's not going to take on that leadership role. And then I'll be in charge of implementing it. Right? We can legislate a lot of things, right? Council legislated setting up this study back in 2018. Why is it that they just had their first meeting April 7th of this year? Because anything that council legislates and passes gets put into an effect, is actually implemented, funded by the mayor, by the city administration. And so if those aren't priorities, if those aren't strong interests for people like me, then we're not going to push it through. But this is one of my top priorities. Economic justice is one of my top 3 platform issues. I'm a union member, I'm a union lawyer, I've been a workers' rights advocate, and implementing things like a PLA or even CWA requirements, local hire, and even diversifying our trades and getting our contracting right requires that we actually staff and resource our Department of Workplace and Employment Standards. I was part of the Lift Up Oakland Coalition that got our local workers' rights protections passed, and that also advocated for almost a year to get this department stood up, to get its initial funding. They're in the process right now of hiring a director for the department. And so I've been committed, it's been an explicit part of my platform to fully staff and resource that department that is supposed to implement and enforce. It is the enforcement arm of the city for all workers' rights laws, all labor laws, from city level all the way to the federal level. It is our local resource to ensure that everything that we say is supposed to happen. Again, if a policy is in place, it's connected to addressing the documented disparities and issues that we spent years studying. We don't need more years of inaction. We don't need more years of just talking or having rights on paper. We have to make our rights real. And as a civil rights lawyer, I can tell you every single day you have to defend people's civil rights, people's human rights, and our democracy, because it is always under attack.
Let me ask you something, counselor. I believe our current mayor is an attorney too. Is that correct?
I'm aware that she has a JD. I don't know if her status with the California bar is active. You have to do certain things annually to stay an active attorney. And I don't know what her legal practice or experience was before she got into city politics. Again, my background has been in the public interest. My very first job out of law school was working as a fellow for the California Employment Lawyers Association as their diversity interest fellow for a year. And I worked at Legal Aid at Work, the oldest nonprofit for employment in the state of California. I also worked in employee retirement benefits, ERISA. It's a very kind of dry statute, but so critical and important to people accessing their retirement benefits that they've worked for and saved for. And ever since I was doing employment labor law, I've been working also to represent employee associations. I currently represent Communication Workers of America, Local 9415. And my full-time job, aside from all the labor organizing that I do, I'm a civil rights attorney, focusing on police practices across the state of California as well. And I also organize right outside of my legal job. Like, yes, I get paid to do some of this, but I also do a lot of work that I don't get paid for because my heart is in it, because I've been a low wage worker, my family has been, and I know what it's like to go from paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to help workers get money that's owed to them and to vindicate their rights and to seek that type of worker justice. I've worked with the Bay Area Black Worker Center, the National Black Worker Center, and economic justice for Black Oakland. So again, my specialty and my expertise, both professionally and organizationally, has been with workers at the intersection of race and economic justice.
Dr. Ashley, I got to say this. Well, I guess if you're out there lobbying for a multi-billion-dollar man who owns the Oakland A's to make more billion instead of out there lobbying for the first African-American sports and entertainment group, Ray Bobbitt's team, to make history. History here in Oakland. Because I'm sure that the money generated and the jobs in East Oakland that would be generated from having a Black-owned, NFL-owned team, or NFL team here in Oakland, would be huge. Mayor Libby, if you're listening, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Shame, shame, shame. Dr. Ashley, you have any? Has our guest come yet? And if she hasn't, I got some more questions on. We have. No, I don't think they're backstage.
Yeah.
We have several multi-billion-dollar projects going on in the city. One is the Okno Naval Base, and the other was the Brooklyn Basin. Okno Naval Base was a $5.5 billion project. The Brooklyn Basin was a $2.2 billion, I believe it was. So let's be clear here, audience. All these people who you see are homeless, 70% are Black. Just think if we raise that number from 5% to 10% or 15 or 20 on these, totaling $7.8 billion.
Yeah, there's a lot of development all around our city. All over downtown, we see high-rise condos going up. Again, we're hearing about large projects that are slated for huge areas in our city. So there's constant developments going on. Some of these properties have increased in value during pandemic. So again, these jobs that come with building these nice and new developments also come with very high wages, with benefits, and with worker protections. But we have to make sure that those who are most vulnerable, who've been shut out of economic opportunities, employment and jobs training and skills training, are able to access them. And we're talking about construction. Like Oakland has entire zones that are for day laborers, and they're majority Latino folks, immigrant folks who are working on people's homes, who are working on landscaping, who are building. So we have a lot of our community that has these skills, that has this knowledge, but they're not tracked specifically to get employment in the unionized jobs or on these projects that have million, billion-dollar price tags with them. So absolutely, there is a crisis of really prioritizing our residents and our workers and allowing our workers and residents to own their communities and have access to these high-quality, high-paying jobs that would allow them to do so.
Well, on that note, we have Mother Ann Benjamin backstage. I just want to say this: Oakland, California, County of Alameda, State of California. We have a DEFCON 1 situation going in here. And for those who don't know, DEFCON 1 means it is a dire situation in here for Black economics. And to sum up, as we say goodbye to our wonderful guests here who articulated a PLA, and what was the other word so we can write that down?
Community Workforce Agreement.
Which is similar to a PLA.
It's just another term. Sorry, I'm in the actor neighborhood. It's just another word for the same exact thing. So they're used interchangeably.
Audience, we are still slaves. We may not be in the field chopping weeds and picking cotton, but if you can't get a job, you can't have a business, you are still a slave because somebody else controls your money, your economics. On that note,
I'll say bye. Thank you again for having me. Congratulations on your 1 year anniversary of putting out this excellent content, meeting other folks that are trying to change our communities, our neighborhoods, one seat at a time, one campaign at a time. I also just want to acknowledge the 2 folks who lost their lives in the freeway shooting last night, and to Brother June, who co-owned Lucky 37
Brother
in the
June.
Fruitvale area.
Yeah.
I also want to wish a happy heavenly birthday to Yuriko Chiyama and Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, for their amazing legacy of racial justice, solidarity work, and really talking about what actual freedom, liberatory politics look like.
next time you come back, we're going to hit the Howard Terminal again because you know that's my pet peeve, ILWU, saving
Talk about the PLAs going on there.
God bless. Stay strong, my sister. We'll see you next time. And Oakland, California, that's why we do not have more candidates running for mayor, because they don't want to answer these tough questions and have a good answer for what they're going to do when they're elected. And I challenge all candidates running for mayor. I welcome you on the show so you can tell us your plan to take Black people out of slavery in Oakland, California. Thank you.
Thank you. Visit me at victoryforoakland.com. I'm also having a meet and greet downtown Oakland this Sunday, 2 to 4 at 1100 Webster. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. As we move forward, Dr. Ashley, can you give our audience a sponsorship break? We blew right past that, but that information that she gave, 2% women.
Not only do we need to diversify, employment opportunities, but we have to do something about the violence in Oakland. And I'm so grateful that Allyssa really touched on that, especially the 3 deaths that we had last night in Oakland, one of a restaurant co-owner and the 2 individuals on the freeway. Before we can talk about advancement, we've got to respond to our city's outcry. But yes, wonderful. Always a pleasure when she comes, and I hope she comes back soon. Thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of blackusa.news. This platform, as you can see, is just reaching people internationally, and we're so grateful for the voices that we're able to encounter. We want to invite our listeners to tune in to Chap and Friends on Mondays, and I saw our family member in the comments. How you doing, family? Thank you for tuning in. So that's Chap and Friends on Mondays, Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesday, Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Fridays. And again, visit his show to learn more about blockchain and cryptocurrency. On Saturdays, we have the Blackout Live from New York with Ms. Tashmir. And Sundays, we also have 60 Minutes in Black USA with Michael Haney. And again, more programming is being added regularly, so definitely check out that platform. And when we talk about, again, limited representation, this just makes our main sponsor just shine so much more brightly. Again, Miss Tammy Willis of Magnolia Engineering and Construction. The company is unique, offering engineering and construction services and a comprehensive administrative and compliance component. So again, keep doing what you're doing, Miss Willis. And here's our invitation to be considered as a guest or to join the advertisement family. Please send us an email enclosed with your company details and address it to BBRT2021 at hotmail.com for vetting consideration. And Doug, are you ready? I see we have our guest loading, but are you going to make your announcement now, or are we going to hold off a little bit? You're going to hold off, it sounds like? Okay, well, I have, let's see, the pleasure, Doug, I'm going to kick it to you to introduce, and then I'll read the bio. Oh.
Let's welcome John Jones III with BOSS, Director of Reentry and Violence Prevention Program. Dr. Ashley, can you please read this amazing man's bio? Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. John Jones III is a devoted father of three and third generation East Oakland resident. John is on staff with Building Opportunities for Self Sufficiency, BOSS, where he serves as the director of reentry and violence prevention programs. Formerly incarcerated, now an advocate transforming his community by channeling his experiences and expertise on issues related to criminal justice reform, police accountability, housing, employment, and public safety. After being unsheltered and unemployed for 18 months, John became involved within his community. Community involvement turned into organizing, advocacy, and empowerment. John shared his personal testimony through his story of pain, trauma, faith, and transformation to inspire young people and fight for policy change. John has worked at the local, regional, and state level for ballot measures, much needed programs and services, and as a result, John has received a number of awards and accolades, but most importantly, feels proud to help make his hometown of Oakland, California, a safer and vibrant place for all. As always, John, it is a pleasure. We welcome you back to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm even more happier seeing my beautiful mom.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to see
Uh-oh.
you.
Oh yeah, you're on mute. There we go.
You see, I wouldn't be Mama Benjamin. You see, you women keep us boys steady in check. Welcome, John and Mother Ann Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for taking me up on the opportunity to share your firsthand reality of incarceration to freedom. And as my brother Sabir said, returning residents.
Mm-hmm.
Returning residents. Mother Benjamin, our core audience is familiar with John and his story of incarceration. However, this is your first time visiting with us on our podcast today. So once again, thank you, Mother Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Ashley, please.
Absolutely. So, again, Mother Benjamin, thank you and welcome to the show. This is a continued conversation, again, where we're just touching base and hearing your first-hand experience of having a child incarcerated who's transformed, come back into the community, doing phenomenal things. As always, John enlightens us every time he comes on the show. But I want to start off with a question to you. What are you most proud of about your son?
I'm proud of everything
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
him. I'm proud that he's able to help his community, you know, which when he was locked up, I would always tell John, I say, John, I know you're locked up, but all this is going to work out for your good. I'm like, your story reminds me of Joseph. He would always say, that's easy for you to say, you know, so I am so proud of him. He went through everything he went through. He came out shining bright.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mother Benjamin, when, in previous episodes where John's appeared, he's talked about your faith. And I hear you even right now, alluding to the story in the Bible of Joseph. So I can even hear that encouragement in your first response. Can you take us a little deeper into your experience about how did you put one foot in front of the other each day, knowing that he was incarcerated, and what did you do to protect your own mental health?
Number one, I prayed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That helped me through to get through it. I prayed. I talked to my children. He had 3 younger brothers and a sister, and I had to explain to them why they couldn't see him, anymore. It was a challenge. It was a financial challenge. It just changed my whole family dynamic. I was at his court every day. That took a lot. It took a lot on me emotionally. but I felt he needed that support.
Mm.
You know, that is very important for anyone that has a child that locked up, is to support them totally, totally support them, because that's going to affect them when they get out. Because sometimes when they're in there, they feel like, oh, I don't have a family, I don't have anyone, and they're like, well, so what? I don't care. They can't turn that negative into a positive.
I just want to comment real quick before I kick it to you, Doug. So one, I want to acknowledge what you're saying, Mother Benjamin, but I don't know if you or John saw the show last week, but the first question even last week with Brother Sabir and his father, hearing that affirmation from a parent brought them to tears. And so, John, I acknowledge the emotion that you are showing right now. And I want to let you know, again, as we get raw, we get real here. I appreciate you showing that emotion. So last week we had two Black men expressing that, parent-child love, and it never gets old. And Doug and I were, letting the tears flow too. And so before we just go forward, I want to affirm this, that Doug, I want to speak for both of us and just saying how grateful we are to see this emotion, safety, observe this love. John, any comments about just the reaction to hearing your mom express what she did about you?
No, thank you. And thank you for giving me that space. And I'm just real quick before I answer, Brother Doug, remember last time I was on, you were in tears and we said it's all good. So you see me doing it. So I'm walking the talk, my brother. It's good. I mean, it was two things. The first thing my mom said, I think any child, even when we become grown, we have an inner child. I know for myself, want to make our parents proud. And to hear my mama say that, like, I always share with people when I go places, I want people to say, and they often say this, your mother did a great job with you. Because what happens is, sadly, mothers also get blamed when children get incarcerated. And I kept telling people, any mistakes I made were my own mistakes or systemic things. That is not my mother. My mother is the most amazing person I know. So it just burns me up when people make that connection, saying that if a child is suffering, it's automatically the parent's fault. And also just my mother is amazing because I'm listening to her share just her struggles. Because I think a lot of times it's easy for us to be selfish when we're inside the box, right? We conjure these images in our mind where you free, you live in life. And no, they're also incarcerated. My mother is sharing the impact on my siblings, the financial burdens. I know she was accepting my calls, making the long trips when I was in a youth authority to come visit and put money on the books and bringing food and much needed supplies. And I say the thing about it that I love the most is I think in that situation, it really brought us even closer. It created this unbreakable bond that we share today. Like, it's not a day go by that if we're not calling, we're texting. And telling Mom, if I miss a day calling you, you'd be like, hey, where you at?
What's wrong? I didn't hear from you.
Exactly. So for me, I just say, I don't just have a mother. I have an angel. I have an inspiration. But above all, I have a friend. There's nothing that I can discuss with my mom. And that's just a beautiful thing when we talk about safety. At the end of the day, it's tough to open up and be vulnerable. And it's rare to have someone in your life who you know really got you and not just wanting something from you. Because that happens a lot in this community world. People pull on you because they want something. Like, what about me? I'm a person. I'm pouring out. Who's pouring into me? And I know my mom is that person. So I love you, Mom.
Love you more.
Mom, so that our audience can get the full impact on your compassion, can you turn your volume up a little bit?
Is that better?
Oh, much better.
Okay.
Audience, let's be clear here today. We know in America, Black people are on the bottom of everything. Economics, health, education, housing. You can have a house next to a white person. Their house will appraise at $500,000 and yours will only appraise at $300,000. What this woman has done, and let me be clear here, We have a lot of African Americans in prison, whether guilty or not.
Mm-hmm.
You have exemplified, mama, and I'm gonna call you mama.
That's fine.
Wait a minute, you're only 21, so I'm gonna call you mama. What you have exemplified here, Mama Benjamin, is what our audience across this nation needs to see.
Mm-hmm.
Whether our kids are guilty or not, you don't throw them out. You stand with them.
Mm.
Because, as my mother used to say, Jean Blackshear, it's not given to the quickest or the fastest or the strongest, but the one who holds out and endures to the end.
Mm-hmm.
John, you're not at the end, but let me tell you something. Your best is still yet to come, because the foundation that you were built on is right next to you. Dr. Ash, you have another, because I'm kind of tearing up again. John, man, I'm going to have to stop seeing you, man. I'm going to have to keep my hanky with me. Dr. Ashley.
Right.
Yes, we'll segue quickly to sponsors, because these next set of questions, I want to make sure that we do not interrupt and just have the conversation flow. But I just also, before I acknowledge our sponsors, just want to just acknowledge faith and love being lived in action, and that's what we're seeing here. So the power of faith and the power of transformation. So again, thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of BlackUSA.News, for giving us a platform to have such invaluable and empowering conversations such as this. Again, Ms. Tammy Willis, thank you for your representation in the field of construction and engineering. She is the president and chief executive officer of Magnolia Engineering and Construction, and one of the few African-American female-owned and operated engineering and construction firms in the country, located in the heart of Oakland, California. And visit the company's website to learn more, Magnolia Engineering and Construction.com, because if our daughters can see her, they too can be her. And again, to be considered as a guest or to join our advertisement family, please send us an email enclosed with your company details to bbrt2021@hotmail.com for vetting consideration. Doug, are you ready for the next segment? And look at this. Can we acknowledge dadding Black fathers? We're not in June yet, but just the power of Black fathers. Hi.
Yeah, go ahead. Say hi to Nana.
Hi, Nana.
Hi, Josiah. How are you?
Good.
Good.
You know, John and Mama Benjamin and Little John. I'm going to call you Little John.
So cute,
Dr.
Josiah.
Ashley,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to announce what I was going to announce, because, John, part of my announcement is got to do with what you are going to be mentioned, not just on a national level this Sunday, but a global level, both you and Sabir. So I'm going to go back to where I'm going to announce this. Special announcement. Ching, ching, ching. Special announcement coming in here. See Doug Blackshear's virtual keynote address this Sunday, May 22nd, on the Black Business Olympics at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.stemcityusa.com. Click the link in our show description at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 2 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time, and it will take you either directly into the Gooden Auditorium, or click away. STEM City USA, the Black Business Olympics. I have been asked and I have accepted to be a keynote speaker on a week-long Black Business Expo, highlighting Black businesses not only here in the United States, in California, in Alameda County, and in the city of Oakland. And then John, because you from the east side, in our hood. But this broadcast is going to be global. Every country in the world will be able to tune in on STEM City to see the Black Business Expo Olympics. So, John, I will be mentioning both you and Sabir and telling our Black people, not just in Oakland, Alameda County, California, and in the United States, but all across this world. Black people, we're going to be like the Marine. We will leave no man or woman behind. Whether you're incarcerated or returning resident, we stand united. That's how we are going to win and get through this. So thank you, audience, for allowing me to share that. And Dr. Ashley, let me just be clear. I accept that honor with you because you are the other half of this dynamic duo that has been asked to represent Oakland and BlackUSA.News. And Donnie Glover, if you hadn't given me this platform, I would not have had this opportunity. And wait until you hear my speech. I've been working on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, let me get back to where we were, Dr. Ashley. Let's welcome back to the show John Jones III with Boss, Director of Reentry and Violence Prevention Programs. We also have on our show today Mother Ann Benjamin. And let me tell you something, audience, briefly. I met John about 5-6 years while he was in the beginning of his advocacy down at City Hall. And the first time I met you, John, I knew you came from good stock. I knew you had a mama who was patting you on the back or kicking you in the back, but she got your back. Welcome back, Mama Ann Benjamin. John, how important was it to have parental support while you were incarcerated? And what avenues were available to you to maintain a connection to family from inside the prison system? Thank you, sir.
Oh, great question. And I'll start with, it's absolutely crucial for someone on the inside to be able to have and maintain a relationship with a family member and a loved one, especially a parent. Actually, let me take a step back. That necessity is needed prior to incarceration, if you follow me. So I want to share this. So when my mom, where we grew up at on 92nd and Holly, with my friends, my mother was the only mom that wasn't on drugs. Right? We talking about coming up age in the 1980s during the height of the crack cocaine epidemic and havoc it was raking up on our people from mental health standpoint. So I'm very clear when I share this, it's not about criminalizing our people. They were victimized by things that they didn't bring into our own community. You follow me? So for me, it starts there. And then the thing is, and I think it's very important now, even today, especially on the inside, you have to have somebody who believes in you. That every step of the way, the system is engineered and designed to reduce us, to eliminate our humanity. They give us our name and give us a number. Whatever clothes you're wearing now, you have to assimilate and wear this prison issued clothing. So then it becomes part of a process where we begin to beat our own selves up. If we do not have someone on the outside that believe in us and our potential, that have the willingness to actually show, not just say it, but show us that they love us. That's the difference between someone like me being able to come home and despite my challenges to get involved with this movement, as opposed to someone else who come home, don't have that type of love and support and self-medicate. And then they become judged and stigmatized. Now, the second part of your question, which makes our incarceral systems just so horrible, right, is designed to interrupt family reunification. And this is what I mean. The first thing, it starts with these phone calls. They were charging a ridiculous amount. Way too much money to make a 10, 15-minute call. It's ridiculous. And I'm glad that there's been efforts recently to reduce that amount, because we call that double taxing. Prisons are subsidized by taxpayer dollars, but then family members are taxed again, whether you're putting money on someone's books or the ability to make a phone call. That should be free. If we're really talking about public safety and we want people to be rehabilitated, then the decision makers have to understand that family members play a key and central role in that. And therefore, they should not be imposing these barriers, these financial barriers that preclude that from happening.
Dr. Ashley, please.
I'm just so grateful and taking this in. So my question is for you, Mother Benjamin. I know that society can be very judgmental to individuals that have relatives that are incarcerated. And so it's very clear that your faith is one of your cornerstones. But I'm just curious, what was your social support like? So now there are spaces where there can be support groups for family members that have individuals who are incarcerated. But I'm just curious, what was it like for you?
Well, I only had my sister as my support. I didn't really have one. So I stayed on my knees crying a lot. So I had to rely on my faith. I relied on God, so that's what got me through. And I tried to instill in John to rely on faith also. It's like you mentioned, judgmental. It's like, well, if you was home, this wouldn't have happened, But as a young mom, I did the best that I could do. I was working in the evening, I was a single parent, so they figured, well, you shouldn't have been working in the evening. But how can you tell a person what they should or they shouldn't do if you're not there to help them? So it's like I got it from all different sides. So I did, like I said, a lot of crying, a lot of praying. To this day, people still kind of judgmental, saying, that I wasn't a good mother. I let him do what he wanted to do, but they don't know the circumstances behind what led up to him, doing what he did to get incarcerated, So.
Well, let me piggyback 1 second, Doug. 'Cause my eyebrow went up like my Aunt Esther when I hear something that's preposterous. So I'm feeling internally this, what? And I am reminded of Job when he was suffering and he had so-called friends come to him in his time of need only for them to blame him for his suffering. So how did you cocoon yourself to block out the shoulds and coulds and judgments? And even now hearing that with all the wonderful things that John is doing, that's preposterous. But I'm just curious if you can share more of that fortitude, because you can shed light on this to help our listeners. Right. And me too, I'm taking notes of that clear mental fortitude that you had to be able to drown them out and do what you needed to do for your baby and your other children as well.
Well, at the beginning, it was hard to drown it out.
Sure.
I cried. I'm like, well, maybe I wasn't a good mother. You start thinking like that. Mm. And so then I started praying. I thought, I'm like, wait, I did the best that I could do to my ability, to my knowledge. So I said, I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I just start praying more. John don't know this, but I cried and I cried. I cried so much when he was locked up, Mm. So that is exactly what got me through, is the praying and the crying. And now when they say that, it just rolls right on off, mm-hmm. because I know I did what I had to do, and look at him now,
Mm-hmm. And strong people do cry. So thank you for validating that as well. It is a release to keep us from building things up to the point where where the dam breaks and it can be overwhelming. So we have to have those moments of safety where we're able to release. So thank you for sharing that with me, Doug. Go ahead.
I did that alone now. No one saw me.
That's all right. That in the safety. Well, yeah. And can I say something, Mother Benjamin, if Emil? You did that alone, and I don't blame you, because this is how we shut people out. When someone's vulnerable, and instead of coming alongside of them, being quiet, and if we say something, being empathic, when you judge someone, ladies and gentlemen, you are shutting off an avenue of communication, of support. So then when someone really needs you, they're like, I can't go to this person. You're going to judge me. Bearing witness to someone's vulnerability is a gift. And it's often after the fact that people are like, I don't know why I was here. I said, well, you might have failed the first test that would have given you access to be a source of support. So I do acknowledge and understand why you would want to cry alone. So even if you have to cry alone, honoring your own emotional experience. And then also, audience, all of us, we have to do a better job of listening, right? Of listening. Doug?
You know what, audience, John, you've met my mother. And let me just tell you this, Mother Benjamin and audience. We never will be the men that we are if we didn't have great moms who didn't give up on it. And it's clear, Mother Benjamin, you did not give up. And look at the result. So those of you out there in the audience who have kids, whether boy or girl, man or woman, incarcerated, don't give up. The best is yet to come. And John Arthur Jones III exemplifies that. Sabir Lockett exemplifies that. Thank you.
Could I say something right quick?
Absolutely, yes.
Ask John what I always say to him.
John, what a Mama Benjamin, and I bet you're similar to what my mama used to say to me.
Yeah, I was about to say, you said it twice. My mama always told me, son, your best is yet to come. Yeah. Your latter will be greater than your former. So you said this twice. I'm like, okay, you. My mama always said that.
Well, John,
you must have been eavesdropping.
wait a minute, John. You know my mother personally, so I know why you are like you are. Thank you, Mother Benjamin. Thank you, Mother Benjamin. For you, life and the day-to-day continue to move forward. What did John miss in your life during his time of incarceration? Thank you, ma'am.
Let's see, what did he miss? He missed me turning 40. He wasn't there to celebrate my 40th birthday with me. Let's see, what else did he miss? Well, I just think he just missed a lot in general. I can't really say one particular thing that transferred in my life. Oh, I know one main thing. I was in a car accident while he was incarcerated, and I was in bed for 2 months. I couldn't move, couldn't raise my right hand or any of that. So he missed that part of being there, and I shielded that from him. You know, I didn't tell him the extent of it. And I appreciate my sister, because when I couldn't visit him, I had her to go. So therefore, he didn't miss any visit. John can see he did not miss a visit. I was there even when he was in juvenile hall. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was there. They moved him to Stockton. I was there. You know, so I wanted to make sure that support continued, even though I was down. Even when I moved out of California, I wanted to protect my younger sons. I didn't want them to get lost to the streets. So, of all places, I moved them to Montana, which turned out I put my 3 boys in my van, and we just took off, just me by myself. In November, and I didn't think of the time. Now, I prayed dearly over, should I make this move? The move was right, but I didn't think of the time because I'd never driven in snow. We get to Idaho, the snow coming down, and it looked scary. And the person was Cloud, and I asked him, I said, what should I do? Should I pull up? He said, you better get out the road. A big truck is coming. So my sons and I, we laugh at that, all the time. So, it's a lot transpired when he was locked up. And I learned a lot. And my other children learned a lot, So it was, like I said, it just changed my whole family dynamic,
There are many impacts incarceration had on your family. Can you both share what some of the not so obvious might be, and what are the long-term effects that may still linger even after John was released from prison? Thank you both. Thank you.
So in the California Youth Authority, so I served nearly 8 years total. So you're talking about, in fact, let me start with my youngest brother wasn't even born yet. Right. So my youngest brother is Rashid, and just missing that baby steps. My sister graduated. I think the closeness too, right? Because we all are under one roof, right? So we're doing things as kids, playing our little games, and then coming of age, right? Because you're talking about by the time I got out, I was almost 25. So those key social moments, not being able to share that, key experiences, getting into relationships. My sister's a year younger, so not being able to have that conversation with my sister, and she got married. I was incarcerated, not being able to go to the wedding. So I think those are the moments that ring out for me. And I think it's important because certain memories you don't get a second chance to experience. That makes sense, right? It happens. Either you was there or you was not. And it remind me of something that Ron Dellum shared with me. May he rest in peace. He was discussing the 30 years he spent away from his family in Congress, right? So he retires, he come home. So, it's holidays, families having dinner. So family members are talking about all these memories, and he realized he was a stranger because he wasn't there for them, for those memories that were being created. So for me, that was an impact for me, just not being present for certain things that I know if I was out and free, I definitely would have been there.
Mama Benjamin, how about you? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. To me, the lingering factor, what lingers is, like you said, his relationships with his siblings. It's like, even though he was gone, there's something that's still kind of like, that I think that John feel is missing. But it's not. That the family dynamic is still, we're still getting back closer together, even though he missed his brother graduating high school. But they're filling in the gaps. You have to excuse me, I'm not a speaker. So they're filling in the gaps of that.
Dr. Ashley, please, and can you answer that question? I am John. I am doing my best to just. Anyway, Dr. Ashley, go ahead.
Sure. So Mama Benjamin, I'm going to ask you a question, and then John, I'm going to ask you a question. So get ready for it, because it is a tearjerker. I wouldn't be the therapist I was if I didn't ask that. But I want to acknowledge, Mama Benjamin, your sister and the power of sisterhood, that even when you were recovering from an accident that had you bedridden, you were still operating in role of mama and making sure that John didn't feel that gap.
Right. Even when I moved to Montana, I made sure that gap filled. My sister was there. She had my back every step of the way. And I'm still grateful to her to this day for that.
Can we give the sister her props on the show today? What is the sister name, so we can go to the top of the mountain and yell her name out?
Her name is Geraldine.
Geraldine, it takes a village.
Right.
We love you, Geraldine. Thank you for helping out the village. We love you.
Yes,
Doctor.
and salute.
Oh,
No, I was just saying yes and salute her. We just salute her. And then the next question I want to ask is off. I just want to offshoot what you said. Making this move to Montana, recognizing what was occurring in Oakland at the time and making the decision, looking back on it, what do you think about that decision? That was very courageous. And I'm imagining had a lot of culture shock as well. So now that you can look back on it, hello, Montana, I'm like, whoa, not just the climate, right? So can you kind of share a little bit more about that experience and the efforts? Because we hear mothers and fathers taking, a lot of people move to Antioch and different places, go stay with the auntie in the South. A lot of people were going to Atlanta, understandable because of what was happening in the town. And you chose Montana so you can kind of give us some insight about your experience.
First of all, my family thought I was crazy because I had a friend that moved up there and I went to visit. I'm like, oh, this is where I want to be. Trust me, it was one big culture shock. We were the only people of dark skin. Wow. Mm-hmm. But that turned out in our favor because, most of them had never been outside of Montana. They'd never seen anyone Black other than what they've seen on TV. Mm. So we had a chance to prove to them, Black people aren't all bad. And believe it or not, they were some nice people. The ones that was racist, they stayed away from you. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a problem with that. Mm-hmm. Like I was the only African American on my job, and they would always ask, "How do you feel being here, knowing that there's no one else here like you?" I told them, "I feel good. I know who I am." People are afraid of the unknown, so I didn't have a problem with being there with no one that looked like me at the beginning. After being there for years, I did. I'm like, okay, I want to see someone look like me. I want to see some sun. I'm tired of this. And that move really helped the younger one, especially my son that's under John. He had I stayed in Oakland, I don't think that would happen from there. He went to college. He got his bachelor's, his master's, So he's doing great. The younger one is doing his own little entrepreneur, so that was a good move.
Audience, I want you to hear and listen why it's so important that Black people have their own media outlet like blackusa.news. You're hearing the raw story of how a family, a village, stays together, prays together, and heals together. What you said, and I'm going to be, because I'm sometimes long-winded, Mother Benjamin, but what you said is so critical. You went up to a whole new area that listens and watches mainstream TV, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, Mama B, whatever you want to call a station. They want to portray us as animals, savages, and killing each other. And it's sad. So for those of you who are watching this show, looking at the true America, thank you. Thank you for enjoying this moment. And it's a pleasure having you back on the show, Mama Benjamin. And it's a pleasure having you back on the show, Mr. John Arthur Jones III. Dr. Ashley, please.
Yes. So, John, are you ready? So, as you know, we kicked off the questions, and I asked your mother what was she proud of, what was she most proud about you? And so I want you to give you an opportunity to give her flowers, which I'm sure you do regularly, and share with us. Tell us why you're proud about your mom.
All right, let me answer it by saying this. And first, I want to share something, if I may, Dr. Ashley, real quickly before I answer that question. Especially because I was crying, right? This is the thing about my mom. My mom's always a tough, strong woman. I only recall 2 times in my life that she cried. The first time was when Marvin Gaye died in 1984, and then when her dad passed away in 1990. So I just want to create the space to appreciate my mom sharing that she was crying while I was locked up. because every time she see me, she always wanted to make sure I was good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I'm most proud of. My mom is very unselfish. She's loving, you know, and sometimes me and my sister, we'll get on her sometimes because we were like, hey, lean on us now. We're here to help you. She'd be like, no, because she's so used to taking care of us. And as a single mother, a young single mother, right? I was 28 when my oldest son was born. And now you remember, I was calling like, I don't know how you raised us. I got this one, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? And even now, having my youngest son at 7, I'm just so proud of my mom, of the woman that she is. Mm-hmm. Just the way she represents, the way she shows up. There's just some people you meet, their energy. Mm-hmm. It's just positive, it's wholesome. Mm-hmm. And everyone who mentions her, right, that's the takeaway. Like, your mom is so cool. Even growing up, like all the her nieces and nephews, my cousins, we was a hangout spot, right? My mom was a cool auntie. Everybody always wanted to come over. It's just, for me as a child, right? That's just something that gives you a sense of pride, because you know that's where you come from. And it makes it easier for me to believe that I also can show up that same way.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, audience, this is the perfect reason. This is the reason. White America, I gotta say this. So I hope you're sitting down. You try to put your knee on the back of our necks. You try to image not Black men and women going to college, supporting each other, taking care of each other, educating each other, welcoming back returning residents, but you want to portray us as criminals and robbers and thieves and slaves. One of the things that I want to clear up before we move forward, and I'm going to say it very clearly. White people say, well, you Black people are lazy. And I heard this on a show, and I can't think of his name, ex-football player. He said, how the hell can we be lazy when we built the country for free? Y'all lazy. So stop saying that. You sound ignorant. Thank you. Dr. Ashley, please. I'm going to be quiet, because all you see on mainstream media, they want to show Black on Black crime. They want to show robbing. They don't want to show men like you, John, like Sabir. They don't want to show doctors and lawyers and accountants and accomplished people, because Malcolm X said this many, many, many times. Media is the most powerful entity in the universe, because it can make an innocent man guilty and a guilty man innocent. Dr. Ashley, please. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I know we just have a few minutes left. And John, I want to thank you for, again, acknowledging your mother's strength and the selectivity in which she's allowed to show vulnerability. And again, Mama Benjamin, thanking you for being so transparent. And so, given that it's Mental Health Awareness Month, in addition to your faith, in addition to your sister, how do you replenish?
After praying and reading, I just meditate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. I'm more or less of a loner. So that's how I replenish, praying and reading. And of course, I talk to my children a lot.
And I see that your Nana, I saw that Josiah was so excited to see you. He said, I don't care what you talk about, Dad. I hear my Nana's voice.
Yes, I'm their Nana.
Okay. And John, as well, just to you, Mental Health Awareness Month, you're such an advocate. This is a topic that we've talked about, and something that you said to me stuck with me in your last visit, when we were talking about not highlighting resilience, but talking about the need for more care so that Black people can have ease into life. And so, can you remind us of the things that you do to replenish, since you pour out so much into the community and your children as well?
Okay, I will start by saying something, and I think it's so important because it relates to this. So last April, right, we're in the middle of this pandemic. I made a decision. We moved to Georgia where my mom is. We were already discussing for years being reunited as a family. So when the pandemic came and the ability to work remotely, I jumped on that. I didn't give any thoughts about coming back to Oakland. So I want the people in Oakland to understand something. A big sacrifice was made, by me coming back. Because I enjoyed the time I spent with my mom and my siblings. And I'm looking forward to going back. It was not easy. I loved it down there. Loved it. I was able to sleep. It was peaceful. Even my son, with my niece, they're the same age, right? So, it was a great thing. But we also understood what was happening in Oakland and just understanding that call. Right? So I want people to understand that. Don't take it lightly. You're getting an opportunity. You're meeting my mom, so you're getting a glimpse into our family life and the things that gave me peace. When you say self-care, I was able to replenish down there. Now that I'm back, and I do want to acknowledge the families of the 3 people who lost their lives last night.
Thank you.
Sadly, I was leaving the Warrior game, so I was on 580 when I seen that the freeway was up. So 4 people were shot, 2 killed. And then coming down Fruitvale, the street was blocked because the store owner was killed.
Yeah.
So this type of trauma is very impactful. So there's 2 things I do in addition to praying and learning and allowing the tears to flow. And in my organization, we implement a healing session for all our violence interrupters. We do it every Friday from 1:30 to 3 p.m. That's standard. So we will be doing that tomorrow because these things are heavy. And I will wrap on this note, and I will share with people in a city like Oakland, especially, for those of us that's born there, these are not nameless entities.
Right.
These are people we grew up with, people we went to school with, and now, because I'm at 48, sadly, these are the children of people I grew up with and went to school with. And then myself having a 19-year-old son here. It's very important to practice self-care. Very important. So I'm a big believer in it. So I appreciate you, Dr. Ashley.
No, thank you. I appreciate you too. And thank you for the acknowledging the trauma, even though I'm in Los Angeles, being an Oakland native, seeing it on my timeline, seeing the names, it hurts. And we have to do what we can to preserve our hope and optimism and purpose. There's work to be done. So thank you for your sacrifice. And I, again, acknowledge that your safe space is with your family in Georgia, and you're taking that and sacrificing that, like Ron Dellums and others. And also, you'll know when it's time to go back. You'll know. He's like, oh, yeah. Doug?
Well, as we conclude this special segment of the Black Business Roundtable, Mama Benjamin, thank you for not giving up on our Black young man here, because I'm a little older than you, John. Thank you for being a good mother. John, thank you for all you do for this community. I just saw Sabir. He had a picture with he and the governor on a program that they're doing. And I know you with the mayor and other people in politics. Keep doing what you're doing, brother, because you come from good stock. It's clear to see there. And we all do. Audience, take this as an example. Don't give up. Never give up. All of our people are worth it, no matter what they try to portray us to be. God bless. God bless you, Mrs. Benjamin. God bless you, John Jones III. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you to our weekly special guest, Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology. Returning in June is Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, our grassroots fighter of human rights and candidate running for Oakland City Council District 4. See more of Janani via her website, Janani4, and that's FOR, Oakland.com, or on Instagram at Janani4 Oakland. Civil rights and labor attorney. Allyssa Victory Esquire, currently running for mayor of Oakland, and the only one candidate who has the guts to come on this show and get asked a hard question on business and what you plan to do. in the Black community on Black economic in this chocolate city that's trying to turn vanilla. Do I need to say it again, Dr. Ashley, or I should slow it down? But I had to say that. Anyway, moving forward, visit Allyssa Victory at Victory4, and that's F-O-R, Oakland, or her website, Victory4, and that's F-O-R, Oakland.com. My brother, my friend, my fellow advocate out there with the gloves up, fighting as an advocate for our people, John Arthur Jones III, on staff with Boss, where he serves as the guest or as the director of Reentry and Violence Prevention Program, and also Ann Benjamin, mother of guest John Arthur Jones III, a magnificent woman. Thank you, and a great mom. Thank you all for your appearance on the show today, and we hope that you will come back and continue to educate our growing audience in the future. John, showing our people that we aren't just punks and thugs and criminals. We need, if our people can see you, they can be you. So thank you for the shining example that you're making out there and the great things that you're doing in our hood and neighborhood in the city of Oakland. And we're glad to have you back, brother, because I see a lot of the great stuff you're doing out there. Thank you, audience, for your thoughts, prayers, messages, and donations for Carlton. New hashtag is Stand with Carlton of Raleigh, NC 2022, and NC stands for North Carolina. A special shout out to Donnie Glover of Black USA. We got to have our own media audience, blackusa.news, where you get the real black news in America. And current sponsor, Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Visit their website at magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com. To join our Black Business Roundtable advertising family, or to be a possible guest on the show, reach us via our email. That's bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Include your company name, address, website, company phone number, and social media page info to our email, bbrt2021@hotmail.com. We have a network of shows hosted by Mr. Donnie Glover, such as Black USA News Morning Show, Donnie Glover Show, Shared Space, Frontline News, Troy Rawlings Show, The Beverly Smith Show, and stay tuned as new shows are added. We continue to ask for your social media support and share these hashtags. Stop School Bullying, Crane County TX 2022. TX is for Texas. Hashtag Driving While Black, Michael Thrash, Taylor County, Texas, and that's TX. Attach our podcast link from October 14th, 2021, listed once again in today's podcast description. For Michael Thrash's story, take action on your social media, click the hashtag and tag us too. Audience, we want to thank you again for tuning in. And remember, together, and I'm going to say that again, together, because we're being divided up. Together, audience, we can listen, we can learn, and we can share, because I know you care. This is Doug Blackshear and my ride or die co-host, Dr. Ashley Coleman of the Black Business Roundtable. God bless and good night.